Yes, you do.
Awesome. And then could you state your name?
My name is Theresa Diggs.
Perfect.
hmm
So we were talking a little bit before about how you had some stories you wanted to share about, I think your name's Casey Williams, right?
Yeah, so this exhibit was about women in go-go, and my mind directly went to Black Alley because Black Alley is more contemporary, more of a group that's currently out and playing in local. I saw some of the people featured, and some of them are no longer performing. And I was like, where's Miss Williams? So, yeah, that's what made me think of Casey Williams. And as I was saying to you earlier, I don't know if they consider themselves go-go, but they're definitely rooted in go-go. So it may be like a go-go offshoot. And on their page, I noticed that on their Facebook page, I noticed that it says Hood Rock. So maybe that's how they classify themselves. And my story about them, which is cute, is I went to a Kendrick Lamar concert when he first came out. So this was maybe 2013 or so. His first album had come out. And a friend invited me to his concert. So I'm like, for sure, I want to meet him because, we would go backstage and stuff. So we go to the concert. I never did meet Kendrick. We just like passed each other, but there was a band opening for them, Black Alley. So a lot of times the opening band, you're just kind of waiting for them to be over. But Black Alley was like still in the scene, and the woman was dancing, and she was doing these moves that kind of reminded me of my belly dance moves. And so I was doing it with her, and she was like, come on up. So my friend and I got on the stage and we danced with them for like the rest of the night. And I didn't actually, like, after that, that was it. But it was a memory for me because I was just one of many. And at the time, I was in my 40s. Most of the people there were like 20. So for her to, ask me to jump up there, I was like, okay, but we had a ball. And that is my only real personal memory with the woman in go-go. The other one I'll tell you about is Chuck Brown's daughter. So maybe a year before Chuck Brown died, he did a free concert on the grounds of the Capitol. I remember the date. I think it was June 8th of 2011. And I was like, well, we grew up with Chuck Brown, and he's a family performer. So I remember going out with like my children's grandmother, myself, my children, all of us would go see Chuck, like if he performed outside. So so I said, let me take my children. They've never gone to see him now that they're older and they know what it is. And they're all musicians. We're a family of musicians. So I was like, it's free. I'm going to go. So I got my best friend, my 4 children, and we went down to the Capitol to see Chuck, not knowing this would be the last time we ever would see him because he died not too long. He died like a year later. So we go to the show, and it's great. And they have an artist outside that's like painting. So my one daughter, who's a little visual artist, she totally was enraptured because the artist was painting the scene on the stage. And then Chuck is performing. We're all dancing. We're having a great time. At the end, Chuck sat down. Oh, his daughter. So his daughter, one of the women of go-go, was also on the stage performing with him. And me having grown up with Chuck in the 80s and 90s, I had never known anything about his daughter. But she was a commanding presence. She was definitely holding her own with her dad. And at the end, she kind of was at his side, assisting him as we all gathered around and got our autographs. So my kids all got an autograph and a picture with Chuck Brown, but she was like the conduit. She was like, Dad, and he's like, what did they say? And then she would tell her what they said. So that's my other, encounter with the woman of go-go, was his daughter. And since that time, I have gone to see his band. Since he passed, I have gone to see just his band, and I think sometimes she fronts for the Chuck Brown band. So those are my women in go-go stories.
Awesome. Were there go-go stories that you had like that weren't connected to the exhibit?
Well, is there a couple? So I grew up in different parts of Washington, D.C., And in my very young age, we lived not too far from here in Southeast down MLK Avenue. Well, there was a local Catholic school, St. Thomas More, that we all went to. I and my two older sisters. Um, I went like first grade, so I guess my sisters were maybe sixth or seventh grade. So many years later, we found out that that is the founding place of Rare Essence, my favorite go-go band. So they also went to school with my sisters. They're more in my sister's age group. That was really astonishing just because I never knew that. I don't think my sisters knew that because we ended up moving to Japan and, we didn't, who knew? We came back and another thing is this park, having seen so many go-go bands in this park. So even when I came in, I always have a memory of coming here as like a sixth grader, going to the go-go with my sisters here at the park to see Rare Essence and Trouble Funk. But never did I know that my sisters went to school with the founding members of Rare Essence. And one day now we have Facebook and YouTube, and one day I just ran across something. It said, oh, all the guys went to St. Thomas More. That's how they met each other. And I'm like, I called my sisters, and they even have a picture of their class. And I sent it to them like, hey, do you know any of these guys? So that's one thing. And my only other, I have plenty of go-go stories because I grew up going to the go-go at Black Hole, at, all the places. There was a club over here in Maryland. But another one of my favorites is when I met Little Benny because I went to college in Baltimore, and Little Benny came to perform, and he had on all African gear, which was not something that people did too much then. So I was really totally like astonished and kind of proud that he would be that groundbreaking to, wear this African garb. And so I'm just like fangirling, not like, oh my God, he's so cute. I don't mean that, but just like he's from my home. Now I know he went to school with us, but he plays my favorite instrument, the trumpet, and he's got on this African gear, and I love the way Benny dances and everything. And when I left, he came up to me. He found me outside and asked me for my phone number. And I was like an 18-year-old girl. I was so flattered. I was shocked. And at that time, we didn't even have phones. We had pay phones in the dorm hall. So I gave it to him. I never heard from him. And then finally, my last one. I played the flute in DC Youth Orchestra in high school. So my conductor was a trombonist, I think, for Chuck Brown. So for us, that was, anybody in the Go-Go's, that was really cool to us, right? But he's a classically trained musician, and we're playing in the orchestra. And so that also was, he really, made an impression on my musicianship. Because here was my conductor leading us through, Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and, all these classical, performances. But how cool was it that he also played for Chuck Brown, and he was encouraging me in ways that I couldn't understand then. But I think he specifically noticed me as a black woman, playing my instrument. I was always first flute, and in the orchestra I wasn't. And I think he used to always pull me aside and say, you could be first flute. I didn't care because I was first flute at school. I was first flute everywhere else. But in this orchestra, there was a young woman who was, she was a bit more well-trained. Her parents were musicians. She had like the top music teacher, flute teacher in the city. And it's not about color, but she was white. And so I think that he was trying to say, like, don't be willing to just play second fiddle. Stand up, get competitive. And I always appreciate, I don't even know his name, and he may be long gone by now. But I always, once I got older and became a teacher myself, I understood what he was trying to nurture in me as a young black musician. Because we're not that much of us, there's not that much of us in the classical music scene. And I was very good, but he was trying to encourage me, like, push, do more. So those are all my go-go stories. Other than just going and having a good time as a teenager, And the River Fest, which we went to in the 80s.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was a ball. It's one of my best memories of Washington, D.C. The River Fest was held at all the different parts of the river. So there would be here at Anacostia, there would be one at like Haynes Point, there would be one at the waterfront. So it was just a thing where everyone went. So you're going to see your friends from school, you're going to see the boy you like, you're going to see people you know from other schools. And just it was a weekend event. Everybody came, we partied, we had a good time. So those were the good old days in DC.
That's awesome. I think we've shared so much good information with us, but is there anything you kind of like to leave people with, or any final thing you'd
I
like to talk
just
about?
would like us to always just honor the creativity and the tenacity that comes from music that is created like from the streets. Because yeah, it's just like hip hop. It's black men speaking over a beat, telling their pain, and now it has revolutionized. It's changed the world, right? And so the same with go-go. I think we don't always honor and respect what that is, because it's people who are disenfranchised, who are looked over, forgotten, not thought about, not given credit for. They may be a genius musically or in other ways, but probably in the school may have been told they're nothing. And so this creation that we as African Americans just keep on creating and regenerating like a phoenix. And I just want to make sure that people remember and recognize that it's not just bah, 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 bah. It is an expression of hurt, pain, joy, beauty, all the things into one.
Awesome. Thank you so
Hmm.
much for sitting down with us. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.